Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever part of the world you are tuned in from. This is Funny Like Clown Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. And that's the cool part, whether you're in Romania or whether you're in Florida, man, you can just tune in and you can get your information on your favorite comedian and get a review on them and find out the history or where they came from, what they're doing, what they're up to, and if they're still alive, what they're going to do. But hey, today we got a special one for you. It's episode 175. It is February, March, April, May, June 30th. Okay. Wow, June 30th. I haven't done one of these in a month. All right. Hey, I'm back. It's a month later. It's June 30th, and I'm back doing another podcast. June 30th, 2023. I don't know what year I'm in. That's how good I'm doing. All right. I do know today's episode is brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce for the spicy, savory tasty game time. There's only one G Vegas. Available at www.gvegas.webs.com. With that go green, go fresh, get it shipped right to your door. Today we're going to be talking about an iconic comedy duo, which, man, I'll tell you, these guys, they might have started the whole thing. I mean, if not, they were one of the first. Laurel and Hardy, what an iconic comedy duo, and we're going to get into that here. And, the thing that got me about this is Laurel and Hardy, they're such a memorable duo, but they both had well-established, careers in the industry before they came the great comedy team that they were. I guess kind of like the Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis thing, where Dean Martin was this iconic singer and Jerry Lewis iconic comedian. They both had established careers. When you put them together, whoa, you just you launched a whole new world here, and that's what happened with Laurel and Hardy. British American comedy duo. Englishman Stan Laurel and American Oliver Hardy. Uh, let's see. The duo started in the silent film era, which I guess Chaplin. I guess Charlie Chaplin. He was famous for the silent film era, and these guys were right there in with him, and it was silent films. They were a big thing back then. It wasn't like the whole different era, where you had to go to the movies and you're watching these things. Not like you can turn on your phone or turn on your computer and watch it any time you want. I mean, just TV itself was a thing. Radio was the big thing back then. TV, that's just a fad. That's going to come and go. Radio's where it's at. Well, TV took over radio in a big way, and the silent film era certainly that was a kickoff to it. Which eventually, transitioned to what they called back then talkies, where it was a silent film of sound, where sound in a film, ooh, that was a whole new space age technology right there. You're gonna put sound with a film, oh my gosh. Uh, they were internationally famous for slapstick comedy. I guess the Three Stooges, whoop, 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 boom, slapstick comedy like that, where they became synonymous with bowler hats. Everyone remembers, the Laurel Hardy hats that they wore. And their theme song to their movie, The Cuckoo Song. Let's see. Laurel, he was the clumsy guy, where Hardy was usually like the bully picking on the clumsy, which I remember. Mo, Larry, and Shrimp. Mo was always picking on the other two, and that was the routine. Uh, I guess Laurel and Hardy probably led to the next comedy was Abbott and Costello, where you had the straight man and you had the funny man. Well, you had the same thing in the Laurel and Hardy days. Uh, as I mentioned, both are very well established in the business. Uh, both were in the 1921 film Lucky Dog, but they weren't a duo yet. They just happened to be in the same film together. Didn't become a duo until 1927 in the short film. The lighting in here is not great anymore. Okay, putting pants on Philip. Okay, so I got to work on the lighting in the studio. New studio, as you can see, the new background here. But I'm loving every second of it. They were both with High Roach Film Studios, which I guess famous film studio back then. They were both signed on with the same one, which is how they ended up working together. Moved on to 20th Century Fox and appeared in 8 B movies from 1941 to 45. And you ask, what's a B movie? That's a movie, I guess it'd be called a low budget movie today, where not a lot of money's being put into it, but you're still getting it out there. I got a B movie out there. The world needs a new superhero. It's on Tubi. Fox TV stream service picked it up, but I can't say we dumped. I mean, we did put a lot of money. I mean, I put 4 or 5 grand into the movie, but when you're making a movie, 4 or 5 grand is like 5 cents. Okay, it's not a lot of money. So I mean, but not where you get the Star Wars budget of millions of dollars or nothing like that. But hey, you're still putting out 8 B movies. That's not a bad resume. At the end of the contract, 1944, they concentrated on stage shows. They made the last film in 1950. Atoll K. Appeared in as a team in over 107 films. That's just. I mean, I know how much work it took just to make the one film that I made. I mean, to think that I mean, of course, I'm doing the low budget. I got to do everything. I got to do costume guy, scheduling guy. I mean, I got to do all the work. Where all they had to do was show up and act, which is a lot easier. But I mean, still 107 films. That's an amazing amount of work, even for today's actors. I don't know many actors done 107 films. 32 short silent films, over 40 short sound films, 23 full-length feature films, and 12 guest/cameo appearances. So I mean, that's just an amazing career right there. You add up, well, that's over like 200, 200 films. Who's got a resume of 200 films nowadays? Nobody. Back then, it was a thing. You just constantly worked. 1954. They were on the American TV show This Is Your Life, which was a big show back then. I remember what the premise of the show from when I was a kid. 2005, they were voted the 7th best comedy duo of all time in the UK. So not here in America, but over in the UK. Number 7 of all time. That's not bad right there, I'll tell you. Let's see. Stan Laurel's parents owned and operated a theater in northern England and Scotland. They were major players in the business, which, if you want to get into theater and your parents own a theater, well, that's not a bad way to get started. Yeah, you're going to get a few breaks there. And I can't think of the actor, but he's won Academy Awards and everything. And I can't think of his name. Tip of my tongue. All right, I'm not going to think of it anyway. But how do you go on to win so many Academy Awards? I guess his family was like major players in the acting industry. So when your parents own an acting studio or something like that, well, that's a little bit easier to get accepted. Let's see. His father secured his first job. He became a supporting actor and understudy to Charlie Chaplin, which remembered, I mean, Charlie, he was the guy back then. 1912, he left England to tour the U.S. Uh, he appeared in over 50 films before he finally returned and teamed up with Hardy. Had moderate success, being labeled, a Charlie Chaplin imitator, because I guess a lot of the slapstick stuff, I mean, Charlie was the master of that, and anybody who did it was considered an imitator of him because he was the main name and brought it to fashion. But I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong being an Elvis impersonator. I still go out to see that, and there's nothing wrong being a Charlie Chaplin imitator and integrating some of your own work. And I thought it was amazingly honest. And I'll tell you, I went to the local casino. I saw Steve Martin, Last of the Legends. He's still touring. I paid a lot to go, but I did want to see him. And I even seen him in an interview. And I mean, Steve Martin, one of the biggest comedians of all time, put him top 5 Godfathers of our era. And he said, a lot of the stuff that he did, it was stuff that Laurel did and Laurel and Hardy, and he just brought it forward to our generation. So it was like there was stuff that we hadn't seen. I know the Abbott and Costello, who's on first. We talked about that on the podcast. They didn't create that routine. They were just the first one to bring it to our generation. So it was just, to put it on. That was a routine that had went around theaters forever, but they brought it to us via TV, and boom, all of a sudden it was theirs. So if you're gonna learn from the best. Nothing wrong learning from Chaplin. Oliver Hardy, born in Georgia, a Southern guy. In his teens, he was a popular stage singer, so I guess had a very good voice. Operated a movie theater, partly funded by his mom. Again, if your parents are going to help you out, then that's what they're going to do. Seeing comedies, I guess, it really inspired him to want to try it. Which, I mean, I got Sam Kinison. He influenced me to want to try comedy, and I loved a lot of other comedians, but the one that influenced me to want to try it, he was the guy. Well, I had that one guy, but I guess Oliver, he saw some comedians and said, "Hey, I want to try that, just like I want to do." Let's see. In 1913, he would sign on with Love and Motion Pictures in Jacksonville, Florida. Which little did I know, I guess back in the day, Florida, they were actually kicking out some. They were like a mini Hollywood. They ended up closing it up, but for a while they were kicking out some films down there. Little did I know. Who knew Florida was once a mecca if you wanted to be a movie star? You could go down there back in the olden days, back in the days of talkies. Let's see. Initially with the company, he helped out with lights and props and stuff. Well, he was learning his craft, and I often said that, I knew the director of my movie, The World Needs a New Superhero. When I got this director on, he had went to college for directing. He had put out a bunch of independent films. I knew he was very good at what he did. I was very lucky to get him, but I also knew he was going to go on to do bigger things. And I'm like, I better pay attention to what this guy is doing because the day is going to come when he's still going to be too busy to work on my projects because he's got his own. And we're making this summer. Hopefully, we're going to make the sequel to The World Needs a New Superhero. And he's too busy to help out. So I got to take what I learned from him, what I learned myself, and hopefully I'm gonna pull it off myself. So no matter what you're doing, whether you're a light guy or a prop guy, you pay attention to what the other guys are doing. So if you do get that opportunity, you're ready. 1914, did his first film, Outwitting Dad. Did 177 short films from 1947 to 1917. He played heroes, villains, and even female characters, which back then, yeah, you dress up as a woman and try to portray that type of thing. Um, 10 years he assisted Charlie Chaplin imitator Billy West. So he didn't assist Charlie Chaplin. It was a Charlie Chaplin imitator. Which, and again, Elvis imitators, they can make big money. This guy was making big money, imitating Charlie Chaplin, and he assisted, the imitator. And well, we've had a couple of those on. I've had on the Robin Williams imitator and the Sam Kinison imitator. You can look them up on Funny Like Clown podcast, my podcast. I've had them on, and they're doing stuff, imitating these comics that other comics wish they could do just being regular comics. So get your foot in the door on that. There's something to be said. Co-starred over 250 short films. Roughly 150 have been lost. See, yeah, back then everything wasn't categorized or whatever. And that's a sad part, man. I mean, if you did 250 short films and 150 of them been lost to time. And I remember I'm a Sam Kinison fan. He was actually in the movie The Three Amigos, but his scenes were cut. And I guess some higher up people, they weren't looking for these scenes. They just wanted to see Sam do it. But back then, you didn't save stuff. They got filmed over, or they got threw away the tapes or whatever. So it wasn't a time where now everything you do is digitalized. So to think you lost, geez, that much work that these guys, films that these guys have put out and they've been lost to time, they'll never be seen. That's really sad. Unless I guess you had a old movie house down south that has an old storage bin somewhere. You open it up and you found the Holy Grail. Hey, we got some copies here, but that's wishful thinking, I think. But yeah, I mean, hey, some of the greats you don't get to see. I remember who was it? Wilt Chamberlain scored over 100 points in a basketball game, most ever, but that happened to be one game that wasn't televised. So I mean, you lost at the time. Nowadays it would have been televised. You would have get to see it. Let's see. 1917, the film industry in Florida collapsed, as we mentioned, and moved. So he moved to California, seeking new opportunity. I mean, if you're an actor and you're on the Florida scene acting, and all of a sudden the Florida scene dries up, well, where else can I go? Hollywood's the only other place to do what I love to do. So either I go there to work or I don't work. So, and that's a big commitment. I mean, I don't care what generation you're in. If you're going to leave your family, you're going to leave your friends, you're going to pack up and just go somewhere where you got no family, you got no friends, just to go for it and do what you love to do. That's quite the commitment. We've said that before. Even in stand-up comedy, nowadays you can be internet star from anywhere in the world. I mean, back in the day, you wanted to be a serious comedian, you had to pack up, move to New York or LA. Those were only the two hot meccas. Not like nowadays where there's a comedy club in every town, every city, every state. No, no, no. Back then you really had to go for it. Let's see. Hal Roach, he was, as I said, he's the one who eventually teamed up Laurel and Hardy. They were both signed with him, and it was his idea, thinking, "Hey, you two would be funny together. Why don't we work together?" Uh, Usually, comic teams were, as we mentioned, a comic and a straight man. But both of these guys were comics, so now, you got no straight man. You're teaming up two comics. This is an untried thing. How's this going to work out? But they found that the two complemented each other. Because I mean, if one was being funny, he knew how to draw off of that because he was funny too. Or a straight man probably wouldn't have known what to do. So they said, you could do a close up of either one and get a laugh. Where back then you could only do close up of the funny guy and get a laugh. Well, you get a laugh of the straight guy, being made fun of or embarrassed of, but he couldn't get you the laugh. Uh, Slapstick comedy with a cartoonish style of violence to it, where the old Tom and Jerry where you hit him with a frying pan or something like that, just kind of silly slapstick like that. Their popular routines are tit for tat and tell me that again. Their catchphrases, and everybody remembers this. Well, that's another fine mess you've gotten me into. Everybody remembers that one. And I think he ended a lot of movies, with that saying right there. That stood the test of time. With a response, well, I couldn't help it. Let's see. Why don't you do something to help me? And the response, oh, oh, that's an idea. I should help you. Or you take a record and you break it over somebody's head and be, oh, I guess the popular "oh" became a catchphrase of itself. Actor James, I don't want to get this wrong, James Finelson. He appeared in some Laurel and Hardy films. He was an actor also, and he did a variation of the "oh," where you break a record over something. "Oh," and he turned into "dough," and who knew that would inspire Homer Simpson on The Simpsons? "Dough." That's where it came from. Was this guy's variation in the Laurel and Hardy movies turning "oh" into "dough," and we get it in today's cartoons. So there's stuff you never know where the olden days are going to inspire you. Who knew that story? As we mentioned, the first film, Lucky Dog, the production details did not survive, and let's see, film historians say it was shot. They're going to say between 1920 and 21 era. So it's like they don't know who the director was, they don't know who the cast was, they don't know who worked on it, or all the information. They may have the film, but they don't know anything about it, when it was shot, or anything like that. Well, as I said, everything today's categorized. Everything back then, it was just a local, make it, throw it out there. Who cares about who, what, when, where? Just let's make some money off it. Next appeared in 1926, 45 Minutes from Hollywood. And after that, the duo did almost 20 years together. 1927, official movie as a duo, Putting the Pants on Philip, as we already mentioned. Let's see, their stock grew and they became stars, which everybody wants to be a star nowadays. And it's almost a blessing and a curse, okay? When you become a star, yeah, you got the money, you get everything, but there's a sacrifice. As I say, you got to move out to Hollywood, you lose time with family, you lose time with friends, and it's good to become a star, but then when you become too big, like when you're on like a Elvis and Michael Jackson, kind of thing where you can't even walk out your door. There's no way you can lead a normal life. There's no place you can go where you won't be recognized. I mean, you almost become a victim of your own fame. And I guess it was getting to the point with these guys where they were becoming too big. They were beating their rivals with their ability to improvise, okay, where everybody else is pretty much scripted and they could go off script and improvise. Which back then, when you're doing cut one, cut two, take one, take two, I mean, if you can improvise, that's a valuable thing back then. It's a valuable thing now. Then, I mean, for any actor. 1925, they entered the sound film era, as we said. They're called talkies. Most actors didn't transition to talkies. They thought they thought it was an insult to their craft, where where body language was an art. I mean, this was an art form where you know your emotions would do the talking for you, where you didn't have to say the words. Now, if you say the words, you're taking away from that art, which I can definitely see that. Like if you're a mime, okay, that's the big thing about a mime. He's telling you a story with his hands and his actions. Well, if he's talking, you don't even need a mime at that point. It's just a guy telling you a story. So I could absolutely see that. Let's see. The opposite happened for Laurel and Hardy, though. Being able to talk, doing talkies actually had enhanced their performance, where others were being destroyed for it. They were really, this was helping their performance out. And both were established theater performers. Okay, so I mean, in the theater you can talk, the audience can hear you. So I mean, they knew how to do the voice thing by being established theater performers. 1932, they did the Music Box. They delivered a piano up a set of stairs, and it was one of those everything would go wrong trying to get this piano up a set of stairs, and it was funny watching them be clumsy trying to get it, not be able to do it. It was awkward comedy. Ended up winning an Academy Award for him, so off winning Academy Awards. Let's see. The they were doing so much. I mean, they were famous for short films, which back then, short. Nowadays, you go on YouTube and you watch short films, but I mean, short films are a thing of the past. It's not like where you used to go to a movie theater, and before you saw your feature film, you saw an up and coming artist doing a short film. Where nowadays they just, the up and coming artist, they give you a short part in the movie rather than giving your own short film. But yeah, short films are a thing of the past. Where, like I said, you go on YouTube and that's kind of people trying to break into it. But I mean, uh, you know, it got very expensive. I mean, this at the time, to make these films were very expensive. But I mean, hey, they were starting to make some big money, so they wanted to add more and more. Then, the extra footage became now instead of short films, they're making feature films, which they call. Then the success led to them only making feature films after that because I guess if you're a funny duo, and the more you can get out of that duo, the more people want. So they went from doing no more short films. They were making only feature films at that point, which led to even more success for them. Uh, they wanted to use an MGM set, I guess, and MGM said they could only use it if they did a film for MGM. And I guess Roach balked at that. It's like, no, you're not, my guys, keep your set. We're not going to use it. So that kind of caused a little bit of a rift right there. Let's see. Their success in making feature films. What is it? Sons of the Desert, Babes in Toyland, Way Out West. Um, Blockheads would be least. Whoa. Blockheads would be last announced. Hardy did a solo film, Zenobia, in 1939. Lauren Hardy would reunite for the independent film The Flying Deuces. Behind, they were rehired by Roach for a double length film, and I hear static. I don't know why, but I do. All right. Anyway, he was rehired by Roach to do a double length film. Because I mean they had kind of run their time. Not that they weren't popular anymore, but I mean, and to do a double length film. Now this is like a feature film doing double the time. All right, this is the next step in just a legendary thing right there. Their stock grew even more. They became even bigger stars. So every time you think these guys are down, man, they just keep coming back. They were beating their rivals with their ability to improvise everything they did. Uh, let's see. Uh-huh. Let's see. They took a rest in 1946 to 1947. They went back to Europe and they did a European tour, which considered, half the duo was from Europe. Hey, I'd like to go home. Would you come with me? So they went over there. They did a bunch of theaters over there, and it was a very popular tour. Which, hey, if you get to see American movie stars over in Europe, that's a big thing. Oh my gosh, they were selling out theaters like crazy. 1948, they decided to return to America. Um, Laurel had an illness, and he engaged Hardy to still perform. Even though, hey, Laurel's saying, even though I'm sick, I encourage you. Don't just even though we're due, I want you to still perform, still do what you love to do. Don't take away from your doing just because I'm sick. That's not fair to you. And that's cool for him to say that. I mean, to encourage the guy. Because if he didn't, you'd sit there and say, "Geez, do you think he'd want me to perform?" I mean, you don't want to wonder. Hey, what would my other half want me to do here? Would he want me to go on? Would he not want me to go on? What? He did perform with some of the big names of the time: John Wayne, Bing Crosby, doing smaller roles, for the next up and coming stars. They were the next, obviously, the next generation, the John Waynes and the Bing Crosby. In 1950 to 51, he made his last short film, a talkie. Had some success in radio after that. He retired to the stage till 1954. He stopped doing movies, just did stage performances. Hardy passed away in 1957 from a stroke. And after that, Laurel refused to perform. Uh, after his passing in 1965, he said, that's it. If my buddy's gone, I'm done too. But I mean, they had such a storied career by then. And I mean, like I said, there's the influence the Simpson and nowadays. I mean, just the story, career they had. I mean, these are the guys who started the whole gig. If you go see your local comedian, it's how come because they made a comedy and art with theaters and it was the first where they were the first, I guess, when you did a theater show, that was the biggest thing at the time. Okay, you do a local like a big city theater show, that was the top of the game right there. Now all of a sudden TV comes along. Hey, this big city theater show, that's not the top of the game. Now we can hit you to the whole country now. That opened the whole new one. These guys were the guys who transitioned from the big city theaters being the top of the game. They were the guys who transitioned to the television, the talkies, and the silent films, and all that stuff to be the next thing. So what an inspiring thing, and certainly, I guess, in a roundabout way, they inspired me because I made my own. I made a couple of short films you can see on YouTube under Dennis Wirth, Wirth, and of course, I've talked about it. My feature film that I was very, very proud of. The World Needs a New Superhero. Fox TV streaming service picked it up. It's on Tubi. So hey, if I can only scratch the surface of what Laurel and Hardy did, then I've given back to comedy somewhat. All right, that's it for this episode. Do what you love to do, man. Don't let the world control who you are. Okay, are you gonna sit there and be miserable every day doing what pays the bills, or are you gonna pack it up and move and go do what you want to do in life? I mean, they'd say it'd be better to eat garbage out of a trash can and do what you love to do than fill your belly with a job you're miserable at every day of your life. So take that for what it's worth. I'm Dennis Wirth. This is Funny Like Hom podcast. Till next time, keep them laughing, folks. Good night.